What's a crazy right winger doing, hanging around with a bunch of crazy left wingers who want to legalize drugs?
Well, we don't go obviously that far on the drug issue, but there's a lot of agreement on the fact that it's $40,000 to put somebody in prison for a year in New Mexico, and that if you've just got someone who has a drug problem, you could send them to a drug court, you could send them to treatment and probation. The evidence shows they'll actually have a better outcome versus throwing them into prison where they learn from really hardened criminals. So we're just saying let's be more cost effective in how we do this, and let's be wise when we're spending the taxpayers' money. And yes, we want to combat addiction. I think we're well intended in doing that, but we need to do it with so we get the best bang for our buck.
So do you think that there is a lot of common ground between left and right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that people may have different reasons for wanting this particular policy change, but and the other thing is some people might go further than others, but the point is we're here at a particular point, and we all think we need to move in this direction of making sure we're focusing our very costly prison space on violent sex offenders, people that we're afraid of, not just that we're mad at.
Do you think that maybe in some ways time is on your side? I mean, so many states are trying to find ways to save money, and it's expensive to house criminals. And also at the same time, the demographics show that younger people have a greater tolerance for tolerance for liberalizing drug laws. So you think time's on your side?
Well, I don't want to be overly optimistic, but I think so. I think that you're absolutely right about the polling about younger people, and of course typically younger voters don't vote in as great a number, so it can take more time for that change to manifest itself in policy. But I do think that there is that trend. Obviously most states are in a difficult budget situation. I think North Dakota is the only one with a surplus. So when you start to look at, well, no, we don't want to release murderers early, we don't want to do things that are stupid just to save money, but here's an area where we're actually spending money, and we may be making ourselves less safe by putting people in prison who don't need to be there, who are getting worse while they're in prison. And we have the other thing that's happened in the last couple of decades, there's more evidence about what works in terms of treatment, in terms of drug courts, in terms of evidence-based practices and probation, to supervise someone in the community so they can still hold a job and actually be contributing and paying taxes instead of being a drain on us in prison.
So last question for you, what would you say to people that, okay, they say, intellectually, I'm with you, but I'm just not quite ready to make that step. I mean, I don't want to turn the U.S. into Amsterdam.
Well, no, I mean, and we don't support legalizing drugs. I mean, we do think that. I think the criminal sanction is important because, for one thing, it gets people into treatment. I mean, I think that when someone is inebriated and they're high, they're not making rational decisions. And so, I mean, we have laws against suicide, I mean, which is kind of an unusual thing, right? But the government is going to step in and say you can't do what you want to your own body because you're not acting rationally. And really the idea is, I think it's consistent with free market ideas because in personal liberty, because what we're saying is when you're sane at that future moment, you will thank us for stepping in. But we should intervene in the least restrictive way possible, and that is, what would you want if it was your own family member? You'd want us to get that person help so they can beat their addiction, and that's really what we're talking about. Now, somebody who's just a teenager who's just experimenting with a joint, they don't really have a chemical dependency. We're talking about people that need to be detoxified, people that could kill themselves. I mean, there was Len Bias who died of cocaine. There's people dying of prescription drug overdoses, and so you can use the criminal sanction as a way of forcing somebody. Yes, we're going to arrest you, we're going to bring you to a treatment center, but we're not going to throw you in the penitentiary with murderers and rapists for 20 years and ruin your life.
All right, thank you very much, Marc Levin.